The Bayou Bengals, LSU set up for a massive recruiting weekend here on deck. Steve Wiltfong, what is the latest out of Baton Rouge?
Well, LSU has the number one ranked recruiting class in the SEC, JD. It's number 3 in the land, and they are hot and heavy with some of their top targets in this 2026 cycle. Before we get into who visits this weekend, they hosted top 100 receiver Jalen Lott this past weekend. He absolutely loved his visit. I had him as a heavy trend to Oregon. He's visiting Oregon this weekend, and the Ducks could still have the edge. I think they do, but LSU closed that gap this past weekend with Jalen Lott. They need to survive the visit to Oregon this weekend, get them back to campus. But LSU making a move with the number 10 receiver in the country, Jalen Lott. They hope to make another move with the number 4 receiver in the on-3 industry, Booby Feaster out of DeSoto High. Earlier in the show, we talked about the emergence of Tyler Atkinson and Chris Henry Jr. in 2026 as the guys that kind of first went prominent nationally. Booby Feaster, reclass to 2026, was one of the first 2027s that got on my radar as a national recruit. 8th grade, came into DeSoto as a freshman, helped them win a state championship in big boy football in the Lone Star State, some of the best coaching and competition that you're going to find across the land. LSU has always been one of his favorites. He's been there numerous times. He's back on campus this weekend. Texas A&M's a major player. Alabama, he was just in Tuscaloosa. USC, certainly one of the fronters for him. But LSU, always been one of his favorites. He talked about the longevity of receivers that they produced years ago to now, from Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. He talked about OBJ. And so Cortez Hankton is a guy he likes being around, a coach that's going to keep it 100 with you at all times. He thinks he can get the right guidance to be the player he wants to be. LSU in a great spot for Feaster coming into the weekend. LSU didn't sign a quarterback in 2025, JD. Remember, that was big news on the trail. They had Bryce Underwood committed for quite some time, but Michigan and the NIL Brinks truck and all of that were able to get Bryce Underwood to stay home and be a Wolverine. That, I think, makes 2026 quarterback recruiting enticing for whoever they sign, because they get a gap year between the last signed quarterback in 2024 and them coming in 2026. The guy that they're going to try and make a move with this weekend is Bo Bentley. He's on 3's number 5 quarterback in the country, number 47 overall. He plays at Salina, Texas in the Lone Star State. He's a state champion. He's got dual threat capability, but he'll dice you up. He's very accurate with the football. Had a huge junior season, big riser, played in the Navy All-America Bowl. He's visiting LSU this weekend. He's been connecting with Joe Sloan. He loves the history of quarterbacks at LSU. I think LSU's got the put your Heisman money on Nussmeier coming into the season, get paid off big. Another Texas arm. But he likes that. Oklahoma is the team to beat for Bo Bentley, but LSU looking to make a move this weekend. Florida State, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, Texas Tech, some of the others that he has a keen eye on. The highest ranked prospect on campus this weekend is going to be Tank Jones, 5-star edge rusher from Alabama. I like where the Tide stands for Tank, but he's always been high on LSU. Auburn's in there. A&M's definitely in there. Florida, Miami, Oregon, Vandy. But he's been to LSU in the past, has been to games in Death Valley, likes Coach Peoples and that coaching staff. Excited to get back to LSU. Some more names to keep an eye on this weekend. 4-star offensive lineman Zayden Krempin. Another Brian Kelly offensive lineman. Just got a huge payday in the NFL. Aaron Banks. If you know anything about Brian Kelly and his recruiting efforts and his football teams, they're always dominant up front. They always get the best out of their offensive linemen, and a lot of that goes to Brad Davis, the offensive line coach. But just over the course of Brian Kelly's career, offensive line play has been so pivotal. So many of these guys in the NFL, from Zach Martin to Quentin Nelson to Mike McGlinchey to Joe Alt, Ronnie Stanley, Aaron Banks is now making $77 million a year. You don't think they're going to point to that with guys like Zayden Krempin, who's visiting this weekend, coming off a great visit to Clemson? LSU's about to have a great NFL draft in April on the offensive line with the guys they got coming out. Zayden Krempin's excited to get to LSU. He talked about Brad Davis, what they've done with Will Campbell, Emory Jones, the guys of late. I don't know if he knows the history, but he's going to get a lesson this week in Baton Rouge of some of the offensive linemen that Brian Kelly's had his hands on. Hezzy Kent's an on 300 tight end. It's going to be on campus this weekend. Florida safety commit Devin Jackson's keeping a lot of schools warm. Jamarian Carlton's an interesting one. I was talking to Shay Dixon, the Bengal Tiger publisher, yesterday as he was putting together his best guest class. Kind of a collaborative effort with our guy Justin Wells at Inside Texas. My on 3 RPMs on Texas for Jamarian Carlton. They led when I put that pick in. Justin Wells is not anticipating Jamarian Carlton being a Longhorn for whatever reasons. He's the number 5 edge in the country. He's at LSU this weekend. He's got a top 6: A&M, Baylor, SMU, USC, Texas, and LSU. So I'm keeping a close eye on LSU as they always do so well in the Lone Star State. Tight end. Alex Atkins now on staff. Israel Briggs, they recently offered, number 7 tight end in the country. He'll be on campus this weekend. Ashari Charles is an edge rusher from Venice High that LSU is looking to make a move with. And then Mark Bowman. There's a big 7-on-7 in New Orleans, battle 7v7. A lot of blue chippers playing in that, so it's going to be a revolving door in Baton Rouge with teams coming through. Mark Bowman, someone that's expected. He was just at Alabama. He was just at USC. Georgia's one of his favorites, and Texas and Oregon round out the top 5. But since he reclassified, he's excited to see some other programs, and LSU's the one that's going to try and make a maneuver with Mark Bowman.
Steve, you and I were talking during National Signing Day, and we were speaking to the potential of what LSU could be on the field in 2025. We're seeing the quarterback back. They love the portal class, and Brian Kelly and that staff are in a great spot. It feels like they're a powder keg on the field. How much of that do you think could parlay into how this class finishes out when we get into the signing periods?
Well, LSU's always going to sign a great class. They have the resources to do it. They have a special atmosphere at night, may not be better in college football. And they have a great coaching staff of guys that like to recruit, from Joe Sloan, Brad Davis, Frank Wilson, Corey Raymond, Coach Baker, the new defensive coordinator. Those are guys that get after it on the trail. Second of all, they finally have some continuity. These coordinators are back for a second year. Coach Sloan will certainly have growth from last year to this year. Their starting quarterback, Nussmeier, is one of the most experienced guys under center in the country. They went into the portal, landed some difference makers at wide receiver, and then you have Coach Baker for a second year running that defense. I expect LSU to have continue to have tremendous growth on that side of the ball. They got to find a way to make Harold Perkins a difference maker. I thought at Notre Dame, they had a special player in Jalen Smith who won the Buckus Award. He won the Buckus Award as kind of like an eraser for Notre Dame. Harold Perkins can be a playmaker, keep teams behind the chains in the new age of college football. I hope that he flourishes for them this year. I couldn't believe when I was talking to Shay Dixon a few weeks ago. I'm not a big Vegas, I don't live on the gambling stuff every day, but that I have LSU as my dark horse national champion. We talked about that during the early signing period show, you and me and Newberg. They're at 8.5 in Vegas. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Put money on LSU to clear 8.5. And you don't have to go undefeated to make the playoff anymore. I think Nussmeier is going to have an epic season. I really think that you're going to see a big jump from last year to this year with him having all the experience that he now has, and what they've put around him in the running back room is terrific with Caden Durham and company, and they signed Harlem Berry, and those guys. They had the best running back class in the country last year. I'm excited about LSU. To use one of my old colleagues, Barton Simmons' words, I'm bullish on LSU, which he probably hates now because he's at Vanderbilt. But the Tigers, man, momentum, and they're going to have an exciting weekend this weekend. I could see Boobie Feaster in their class, and we'll go from there.
And if they do end up making the playoff and competing for a national title like you and I think they both could, I would be fascinated to see where the Tigers finish when pen meets paper. LSU Tiger fans, get in the comment section. Let us know your expectations for this class when it comes time for National Signing Day.